Hello and welcome back to another YouTube video. Today I'm going to be talking about echo chambers on the internet and why I think it's so important to go and seek completely fresh perspectives, and how by doing that I have completely transformed my way of thinking and therefore my way of life. So what I believe is that the way we think creates the way we feelings a lot of the time, and therefore the way we act. On holiday I've taken this book with me. It's called A Guide to Rational Living by Albert Ellis. I've taken this book alongside some other ones, and it's a really good book. I've read it before with like the audiobook version, and then I took 2 copies for me and my girlfriend to read as well. And all of this started sort of end of 2023. I had a podcast and I was talking about quitting pornography, and I was doing episode after episode, and then eventually this company called Podcast Guests got in touch. You may have heard the story before, but basically they wanted to sort of highlight my podcast on their email list and then invite people who had signed up to their email list to come on my podcast. And one of the people who wanted to come on my podcast, which back then was called Finally Quit Porn, was Mary Paulus, of course. And then I ended up building the Beyond Compulsion Academy because Mary taught me what's called the Beyond Compulsion method, which was this very unique way of overcoming addiction. Now, Mary, when I'd first met her, hadn't even heard of the likes of NoFap. I don't think she knew very much about porn addiction at all, really, and she hadn't spent any time in these weird sort of online porn addiction recovery communities and watching the different random YouTube videos on it and sort of learning about maybe the flat line or steam and retention. And there's a lot to learn in terms of that side of things, but looking back with what me and Mary now know, actually learning any of that stuff wouldn't really help us, because what she taught me is a very unique, specific way to deal with what I believe is the real problem, which is compulsive desire. And my mindset, my understanding of the problem I had when it came to porn and compulsivity is just so different to my understanding of it now. You know, back then I used to think it was to do with, like sexual desires and who I was, or maybe some trauma. And I had all these different reasons, what I call junkie thoughts, explanations, rationalizations, justifications to engage in my compulsive behaviour. One day it'd be, I've not seen anyone today, I've been so lonely. Other times it'd be, I've drank a lot last night, so I'm hungover and I'm tired and weak and exhausted. And then, other occasions it'd be, I got triggered because of this thing that I saw. And the language that I was using was the same sort of language that everyone in these porn addiction recovery communities that I'd been a part of were also using. They were using that same sort of language. But then Mary Paulus, who taught me the Beyond Compulsion method, was just talking a completely different language. And she was the only one to say to me, like, look, Tom, you're in addiction right now. Like, you're relapsing, you have a problem, mate. Like, come on, like, you relapsed like a week or 2 ago. Can you not see you're in an addiction? And I was like, no, I'm fine. Like, I'm managing this, I'm good. I've been on a long streak recently. I've hit 90 days many a time. I was so clueless because I thought that going on a long streak was an indicator of success, because that's what these online communities had taught me. But really looking back, they're all just these weird sort of online echo chambers. And I say they're weird. I mean, there's literally no shame in being in those communities, because, I'll still post occasionally on a few of them from time to time. Well, really only Brain Buddy. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to seek support and get help. But the thing that's weird about them is that very few people ever actually succeed in rewiring their brain and get free from this problem. And if you're keeping a streak, to me, you're not free, because you just wouldn't keep a streak if this wasn't a problem for you any longer, right? So there's literally no shame at all or judgment really in being in those communities. But it is very weird when you look back and realize that actually 99% of people in those specific online communities are actually struggling, and most of the information is based in what we call helplessness, which is, this idea that you don't have control of yourself. Like, you need to have a blocker in place, or you need to remove your triggers, and if you don't, you're going to get out of control. All of that's bullshit, because it's all about how you rewire your brain and how do you actually deal with compulsive desires. In that moment you have an urge, how do you respond? That's the only thing to actually work on when it comes to addiction recovery, really, is how do you respond when a part of your mind, because there's these different parts of the mind, when that part of your mind wants you to engage, and that seems like this all-consuming, overwhelming desire. It's like, what do you do right then and there? If you focus and deal with that, and you change your language, your way of thinking, you know how to deal with that moment, I can assure you, you're no longer going to be worried about overcoming this problem. You're no longer going to need the support of these online communities or be tracking your streak. It really is about learning that specific skill, just like you would learn how to drive a car or learn how to do a mathematical equation or anything else. Once you've mastered that skill, you're good to go, and you can enjoy maybe being part of a community and share with other people who are like-minded and have similar goals with yourself, and that's what we're building within the Beyond Compulsion Academy, of course. But really, once you've mastered that skill, you know, off you go enjoy your life and build the life you want to live. And that's sort of what I'm doing right now, because I've mastered that skill of dealing with compulsive desire, and that's all come from Mary Paulus's education, which was very unique and very different to anything that was in all these weird online communities that weren't actually helpful at all. So yeah, my advice, if you're struggling with a problem, don't surround yourself with other people struggling with the same problem, because the definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over and over and expecting different results. It's not going to work. You got to try something completely different to anything you've ever tried before, and there's a chance that actually you'll transform your way of thinking entirely. And then once you've done that and you've mastered that one skill, you'll realize that it can be applied to pretty much every single area of your life, and that pretty much anything is up for grabs really, which is extremely, extremely exciting. So cheers guys, hopefully it's helped someone, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.